So welcome to this week's Optimal Health Clinic Facebook Live. And firstly, there's been a request around the camera that I did a few Facebook Lives last year with a different camera, which was a camera which was static, rather than me holding the camera in my hand. So I was going to try and go back to that camera tonight. I just was running 15 minutes late for the Facebook Live. And the simple answer, it takes more time to set up and configure using the other camera. So I will endeavor to try and use that a bit more reliably. It also just depends upon where I am as well. So this week, I wanted to do something looking at the different... So when I'm working with patients, let's put it like this. When I'm working with patients, one of the things that I do is I go through a checklist of fundamental pieces that I want to make sure are in place. Now, there are lots of checklists that I go through and practitioners go through. This one is specifically around, in a sense, it's almost the kind of the macro piece that needs to sit around everything else that's going on. It's like, it's the checklist to make sure we're going in the right direction. And when we are going in the right direction, how do we build upon it? So there are other checklists in terms of different bodily systems and different patterns, different subtypes we go through. This is more around the kind of the overall trajectory of, are we going in the right direction? So I called it the 4 fundamentals of recovery. There is a lot more than 4 fundamentals, and it's not the only 4 fundamentals. But I was trying to find a better title for the video, and this seemed like a good way to try and encapsulate it. So the first one is making sure we have a baseline. Do we have a stable foundation from which we are building forwards? If we don't have a stable foundation, all of the focus tends to go in to building that foundation. And that is often looking at pacing, looking at activity levels, looking at is someone overdoing it? Are there factors which are causing things to be going in the wrong direction? But until we have a baseline, and I know that over the years, I've significantly irritated some of the people that I've worked with because I've refused to go into using other tools and techniques and other pieces until I feel we're building from a stable baseline. If we haven't got a stable baseline and we're going up and we're down and we're all over the place and we're crashing, we're relapsing, we're bumping around, it's very hard for any other stable progress to happen. So point 1, build a baseline. Point 2 is, are we making progress? Now, of course, getting a baseline is in of itself a form of progress. But are we now going in the right direction? I.e., are we seeing somebody making progress over time? Sorry, the camera jolts because my arm gets sore holding it up. Are we making progress over time? So are we seeing that we're having less crashes and more ups, that down periods don't last as long and up periods last longer, and there are less downs and more ups, and the time between is improving. So we want to make sure, 1, we have a baseline. Now 2, are we making progress? The step, once we've got a baseline, is to do what we can to start to see progress. Now, often that progress, the patient and we want it to be faster, and of course someone wants to be getting out of the situation as fast as they can, and often there can be frustrations. They want progress to be moving more quickly. We'll come to that in a moment. But the key is, are we moving in the right direction? However slow that might be, however we might wish it to be different, we want to make sure that once we have a baseline, we're now moving forwards. Point 3, we want to protect that progress. Because it's one thing to start moving in the right direction. What often then starts to happen is a lot of the old patterns can start to come back in again, and they can start to get in the way of or start to erode that progress. An example might be that we've been at stage 1, we've found a baseline, we started to make progress, we moved from stage 1 to stage 2 of the 3 stages of recovery. As we come to stage 2, we find that we can do more. Stage 1, we were isolated from the world, we couldn't do helper patterns because we didn't have the energy to engage with people. Now we're starting to engage with people. Suddenly what we find is the old patterns start to come in. We start making other people's needs more important than our own. We start going into those patterns and we start to erode the progress that's happening. So we want to make sure we protect the progress. How do you protect the progress? You protect the progress by keeping an eye out for patterns that are coming in that are getting in the way of the progress. That might be internal patterns. It might also be things that are happening in the environment around us. It might be that suddenly people see us improving and then they change their expectations of what they're asking from us. And those expectations start to become too much too quickly. So sometimes we can feel like we've got to step 2 and making progress, and it's like job done, brakes come off, we just start going back to how things were before. So it's important when we're making progress to recognize that progress needs to be protected. The next step, once we have that progress protected and stabilized, is how do we accelerate the progress that's there? Now, I've said a number of times in different videos in different places that I'm generally not a fan of overnight miracle success recovery stories. Of course, if they're stable and they last, that's great and everyone's a fan of that. But what goes up in a way which is unsupported will crash back down again. And so if someone's recovery suddenly starts rocketing off and it's not built on a solid foundation, the risk is a crash or a relapse. So when I say accelerate the progress, I don't mean pushing. I don't mean trying to make it better than it actually is. I don't mean getting over enthusiastic and carried away with where we are. I mean looking at, we've got a baseline, we're making progress, we're protecting the progress, and now we're looking at what can we do to accelerate the progress. And that could be things like doing more work on calming the nervous system. It could be going harder in some of the nutrition work if there's certain around detox it needs to be. It could be getting more of a focus towards our future and where we're going and what we want and getting inspired around that. It could be looking for other pieces that we've missed in terms of the jigsaw puzzle that need to be included, and they're necessary to help accelerate the progress. It may be that of the 5 or 6 things that we need to be doing, we're doing 3, and that those 3 have given us enough energy to go out and engage with and find those extra pieces. So on one hand, this is a very simple checklist. Go back, build a baseline, make progress, protect the progress, and accelerate the progress. But it's surprising how easy it can be to ignore these fundamentals, i.e. we try and make progress without having a solid baseline. Or we start making progress, but we don't protect the progress. We just start jumping back into all the old things. Or we protect the progress, but we almost overprotect the progress, and then we're not willing to take some risks because at stage 1 or first part of stage 2, taking risks meant a crash that lasted 3 weeks. Stage 3, taking a risk might be a crash that lasts 24 hours. So sometimes to accelerate, we have to be willing to be less protective. So hopefully that's a helpful way of thinking about where are you. Like, it's almost like thinking about these are building blocks that you need one to go to the next. So if you're trying to accelerate, but you haven't built a baseline, you haven't got solid progress, you're not protecting it, it's not going to work. Equally, you might have built the baseline and be making progress, but you're not protecting it. So just run through and make sure you have each of these pieces in place. It's one of the, especially when I start working with someone and when I check in with someone at the beginning of sessions, this is what's going on in my mind. One of the things that's going on in my mind. Have we got the baseline? Are we making progress? Are we protecting the progress? And are we then looking at accelerating that? And how do we move it forwards more quickly? So I hope that's been useful. I'm really trying to keep these videos to 10 minutes or so. They seem to be more useful in that way. Just looking at the comments. Thanks, Sharon and Susan, for your comments. Anne says, it is expensive and some of us on ESA. Yeah, and obviously we recognize that a lot of people are unable to afford the work that we do. We are a registered charity. Any profit we make goes into research. Purpose of the research is to be able to get government funding, NHS funding for treatment down the line. A great stepping stone in the short term. We put out a lot of content on Facebook, a lot of content on YouTube. It's all completely free. If you want to go deeper into that, we have something called secretstorecovery.com. Has over 100 hours of video, audio stuff, and it's very, very affordable. So it's not a perfect solution. It's the best solution we have at the moment. We're working very hard with a great deal of determination to find the way to make what we do more available. Good, I think that's it. So thank you, everyone. Same time, same place next week, and I look forward to talking to you then. Bye-bye for now.